Welcome back. My Moto Guzzi V7 is in the shop for its 12,000 mile service, and so not having a bike, I am driving my Porsche Boxster, and now seemed like an opportune time to talk to you about my Boxster. Some of you have asked for a review of my Boxster, and what I want to talk about is whether this is really, as they say in so many YouTube videos, the affordable sports car. Is it? How much does it actually cost to own and operate a Porsche Boxster? So first, let me tell you a little bit more about this one. This is a 2002 base Boxster, not the Boxster S, but the base model. And I bought it about 4.5 years ago in December of 2022, when it was at that point 20 years old. It had 89,000 miles on it. When I bought it, 89,000. Currently it has 98,000 miles on it. So I'm putting roughly 2,500 miles a year on the car. As I've said in other videos, this is not my daily transportation. I ride my Moto Guzzi, or my wife and I drive her car, but I do drive the Porsche frequently and put about 2,500 miles a year on it. This, as the base model 2002 Boxster, has a 2.7 liter engine, generates about 217 horsepower. It's a flat 6 engine. And a lot of people talk about how this is very similar to the 911. The whole front end is very similar to the 911. A lot of people complain about the headlights, what they call the fried egg headlights. I actually think these are nice. I kind of dig them. So let me talk about how it is to drive, and then we'll talk about costs. As I talk about how it is to drive this car, I'll give you a little view around it. So I love driving this car. It has great holding power on curves. It has very good pickup. It certainly will zip ahead of traffic when I need to. I can take a corner pretty darn quickly, probably more quickly than I should, but I have fun doing it. It really grips the road and really holds on to the corners. As you can see, it is of course quite small. It is a 2-seater, of course. It is a mid-engine car, so under that panel there, that's where the engine would be accessed. I, being a mechanical idiot, would not even attempt to do so, but for a proper Porsche mechanic or someone who really knows their cars, they can get at it through there. It's not easy. I've looked at videos where it describes how to get into that panel and get access to the engine, and it's a little bit complicated. I put these tires on when I bought the car. It had tires on it that dated back to 2009. Those were really old tires. So of course I took those off and replaced them with these Continentals, and I find that they are very good, effective tires for this car. Because it's a mid-engine car, it ends up having actually 2 trunks. And so here's the trunk in the back. You can see it's quite roomy, actually. There's a lot of space. I can certainly fit a pretty large suitcase in here. I'm not sure you could get a set of golf clubs in here, but there's reasonable room in the back of the rear trunk. Now let's take a look at the front trunk, or what some people call the frunk. The front trunk releases with a little latch under here, which I always have trouble finding. Oh, there it is. There's it. So here you can see we have the spare tire in the front, and it's fairly deep. It's not very wide, but it's quite a deep space, so you can get considerably more stuff in there, more luggage or groceries or whatever. With my particular car, as you can see, I have to hold this open. It should stay open by itself, but it doesn't. If I let go, oops, there it goes, it closes. So I have to keep it open, but I don't use the front trunk very often, so I just haven't bothered to have it fixed. Closing it is interesting. You let it drop, and then push on the Porsche emblem to make sure that it gets that last little click, and that's the proper method of closing the front trunk. The interior of the car is kind of interesting compared to a modern car. There are a number of differences between this Boxster and what you might find in a more modern car, or even for that matter, an older American car. So let's take a look at some of those. First of all, where do I put the key? Where's the ignition switch? Not where you might expect. Here is where the key goes. It goes on the left side of the steering column. Normally, you find the ignition on the steering column, or at least on the right side of the steering column, but not in this Boxster. It goes there on the left. Here we have the central controls and the radio. We have no glove box. A glove box was added in later versions of the Porsche Boxster, but not in the 2002. There's no glove box at all. There are, on the sides, little compartments. This flips up, and you can see there's a little space in there to put a little something. There's one on the driver's door as well, but no actual glove compartment. But in the center console, we do have a little pop-up compartment here, which is big enough to hold a couple of things. Got my garage door opener, got my pike pass for traveling on the turnpike, but not a whole lot of room in there to hold other stuff. Where's the cup holder? These are the cup holders. Two of them. Totally useless. They will only hold a very small can or a very small cup, and they are not very stable. If your cup is very tall and you put it in here and you go around a corner, or even if you stop or start rapidly, it's going to come right out of that cup holder and gone. So I don't use them. I find them to be completely worthless. But let's take the top down and see how that goes. Taking the top down is a bit of an operation. It's fairly easy, but there are some quirks to it, some little tricks that I learned about when I first got this Boxster, and so I will show you how that goes. The first thing you do is you open up this connection here. Well, we've got to have the key turned on or we can't actually do anything. But as you see, when I turned on the key, the windows lowered a little bit automatically. I didn't do that. As soon as you release that latch, the windows lower by themselves a little bit. And then down here on the panel is the actual button for lowering and raising the top. And I will set the camera outside so you can see how it is as it goes down. And I pause it about here so that I can close that latch because I don't want it sticking open like that when the top is down. And I go a little bit further to right there, and then I have to do what's called the Porsche chop. The rear window is plastic, and if you don't smooth it out, it could become permanently creased and eventually crack and break. So I'll show you what that looks like. So as you can see here, we've got the plastic rear window and it's wrinkled as we put the top down. So what you have to do is go in and push it down like that so that you get what people refer to as the Boxster chop and smooth out that surface. Now the top can come all the way down. And there it is. Disappears nicely, leaves a nice clean line. Not too much trouble, but you do have to do those little quirks. Now back to the original question. Is this the affordable sports car? How much does it really cost to buy and maintain and operate this Porsche Boxster? I bought the car for $12,000. I thought that was a reasonable price. Certainly was not overpriced, but it also was not underpriced. That was about the going price when I bought it in December of 2022. But after I bought it, I ended up putting many thousands of dollars more into all kinds of repairs. Here's the breakdown. The first thing I had done was to get an oil change because I wasn't sure how long it had been since the previous owner had changed the oil. So I did that right away in early January of 2023. And that cost for changing the oil and the oil filter kit $225.10. Next, I had the car fully inspected at a Porsche shop that someone told me could be trusted. And so I took the car there. Before I bought it, the seller had had the car checked over at Porsche of Oklahoma City, and they showed me that report, and it showed that there was nothing really wrong. But I thought I would go ahead and get it checked over. There was a loose wire in the trunk. I didn't know what that was for, but I had them check that. And also, the PSM light came on. That has to do with the braking system. So they had to repair that. And that came to a total of $302.08. Then, just a couple months later, the brake pedal light switch had to be replaced. The crankcase bellow was showing fault codes and had to be replaced. The stub axle seal on the Tiptronic transmission, both sides, had to be removed and replaced, the rear axles and the stub axle, and replace the stub axle seals. Had to remove and replace the valve cover gasket. Had to flush and bleed the brake system. All of that came to a total of $3,697.28. But we were not through yet. It had to go back again, not too long after. The evaporator and heater door seal had to be repaired. I was not getting any heat or air conditioning in the car. Recovering the refrigerant, removing and replacing the evaporator assembly, separating and replacing the door seal, and removing and replacing the heater core. All of that cost $2,271.44. Also, replacing the front transverse arms, another $918.06. Also, replacing the front sway bar links, $332.54. Had to repair the emergency release cable, $224.27. The airbag light came on. Cost $160 to have that fault code fixed. The seatbelt latch on the passenger side had to be fixed for the default code, $501.48. And the cooling fans had to be replaced on both driver and passenger side, the cooling fan resistors, another $881. At this point, I began to be a little concerned about the trustworthiness of the Porsche shop that I was having do all this work, since the Porsche dealership in Oklahoma City had said there were no major problems, and now I was many thousands of dollars into repairs with the specialized Porsche shop. So I took it to a different shop because the specialized shop had told me that there was a leaking of the shocks and struts and the bump stops. I took it to a different shop and had them check it out. They said they couldn't find any leaks. They gave it a test drive. The shocks felt just fine. The brakes looked good. Everything was dry. Now I was really concerned about that shop. I didn't really want to go back there. So when it came time to change the oil again, I took it to yet a different shop, and that oil change came to $153, considerably cheaper than the oil change at the specialty shop that I had done when I first got the car. I took it back to the same second shop because I wasn't getting any air conditioning when the summer came around. And summer in Oklahoma is hot, 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 so I needed that air conditioning. They found that there was no refrigerant in the system, even though the specialty Porsche shop had charged me for charging up the refrigerant in the system, but no, it was completely empty, so charging that up, $223.53. Would I have been happier if I didn't pour all those thousands of dollars into repairs? Of course. Am I sorry that I did it? No, I'm not, because I know that this car is going to appreciate in value. That's the nice thing about having a classic sports car. The value is going to keep going up. It's not going to go down like a new car will, or even an older car that's not special. This Porsche Boxster is going to continue to get more and more valuable. So eventually, I will make up the difference in the thousands of dollars that I put into the repairs, and hopefully the car will become even more valuable than the total cost. Now let's talk about that elephant in the room. The IMS bearing, the intermediate shaft bearing, which is known to fail on Porsche Boxsters. And my car, a 2002, is smack dab in the middle of the most common failure years, running from 2000 to 2005. So I'm in the danger zone. But on the other hand, the percentage of failure rate is, according to many sources, 8%. Well, that sounds terrible, right? Except that also means that it's a 92% chance that it will not fail. So I'm going with the positive outlook. Now, what happens if the IMS bearing does fail? Well, it's catastrophic for the engine. How do I feel about that? I'm not terribly worried about it. If the IMS bearing fails and there's a catastrophic damage to the engine, well, that's the brakes. I then have two choices. I can either search for a new Porsche engine, which is probably not a good idea because I've read that all of the good engines have long since been taken by other cars whose IMS bearings failed. What I would actually do if my IMS bearing failed and I needed to replace the engine, I would convert this car to an electric car, an electric motor, a Tesla conversion, which might not be any cheaper than putting in a new Porsche engine, but would certainly have the benefit of being more economical and lasting a very long time without any maintenance to speak of. So that's my plan. The other reason I'm not terribly worried about it is that this is not a show car. This is not a concours Porsche Boxster. The paint has a few blemishes. The interior has a few blemishes. I'm not trying to make it into a show car. It's my driving car. I enjoy driving it, and that's why I got it, so that I could have a drivable sports car. So if the worst comes to worst and that IMS bearing fails, well, I'll deal with it then, but I'm not going to be terribly broken up about it. Conclusion then. Is the Porsche Boxster an affordable sports car? For me, I would say yes, it is. Although I've got somewhere in the range of $20,000 invested in this car, if you look at the price of other sports cars, that's in the range. Mazda Miatas, MGBs, those are all selling between $20,000 and $30,000 now, depending on condition. And certainly compared to a new Porsche Boxster, this is very affordable. And it's a car that I like to drive and I want to own because it's fun. I'd spend a lot more on a newer car. I'd spend a lot more on a number of other classic sports cars. So for me, this meets the test. It's an affordable sports car, or at least in the range. And I like it, and that's what really counts. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.